What's up and welcome back to another video. My name is Miles Away and today we're going to cover the brand new Polyend Synth. Now, the Polyend Synth is a brand new 8-voice tritimbrel synthesizer with a whole bunch of different engines and a really innovative poly aftertouch keybed. Now, story time. I love Polyend as a company. I've had a great relationship with them for a couple years, and they sent me over the synth as well as their new compressor, the press, to check out. And I think right away, I actually gravitated more towards the press than the synth. I just go for things typically that are pretty utilitarian and slot right into my existing workflow right away. And the press was exactly that. Within the first 5 minutes of having it, I was running my tracks through it, running my synths through it. And seriously, again, go check out that video after you watch this one, it's great. Whereas the synth, I sat down with it and I was like, this sounds great, it's awesome, really great keyboard, but it didn't immediately click with me the same way that maybe some other stuff from Polyend has. And what really happened was over the next couple weeks, I started to take the synth out and play it outside of my studio, just sitting on my couch, sitting in my office and just playing around with different patches and scenes. And I just started to notice I was having a ton of fun. I found that the Polyend Synth was just a great time every time I sat down with it. And I think that's what I want to center this video around and why I think the Polyend Synth is a great choice if you're a beginner or an intermediate, or you're maybe looking to buy your first tangible hardware synth. So let's start off with checking out some sounds, and these are all just improvisations. None of this was planned. I just basically recorded myself playing. This is just directly what you're hearing out from the synth into a little bit of compression. So as you can see, it's really easy just to kind of get lost in whatever scene you're playing and just end up coming up with something really usable. I might actually resample that for a future track. Another thing I was really impressed about with the synth is that it's actually a very capable, fully featured ambient box. And I think that's down to the quality of Polyend's effects. I've said it before, but I love the sound of their reverb, especially for just it being a built-in effect, which usually reverbs on built-in devices are pretty bad. Their reverb and delay and mod effects here are excellent. Here are a couple scenes of me jamming in a more ambient style. So yeah, as you can hear from these improvised jams, the Polyend Synth takes me in a direction that I might not normally go musically, which is really fun and inspiring, and why I think it's just a really awesome recommendation, especially at the price point it's at. But yeah, let's look at some of my favorite features and some of my favorite things that really only the Polyend Synth can do, so you can see if it's right for you. All right, so here we are on the front panel of the Polyend Synth, and rather than doing a full tutorial, because there's tons of those already, I'm gonna show you some of my favorite things about this awesome little box and why it's so fun. So let's start off by going ahead and we'll initialize a scene. So the scenes are kind of like your starting point here. So we've got basically our grid, which we can change like this. We'll go in and we'll change our layout. So let's start off with something real simple here and just basically go for blue, meaning that it's going to be a single synthesizer voice. So now we can go ahead and allocate our voices. So let's go ahead and synths. Let's make 0 for purple, 0 for yellow, and all 8 to blue. Let's go ahead and let's change a preset here with Shift Preset. We'll go into VAP and let's play through some sounds. I like balloon, that's great. So right off the bat there, got this beautiful sounding single polyphonic 8-voice synthesizer. So let's add some reverb to that. So we can go ahead and make our reverb really, really long here. So a nice long size, a little bit of pre-delay, some time, and let's go ahead and send our blue synth to some reverb. So let's go into our scales and change it to something more interesting. So we'll change our root to E, and we'll come back to the other modes later when we go to look at the tritimbrel sounds, but let's change it to Lydian for now. So now we have this beautiful E Lydian ambient synth patch. totally playable and immediate and really just fun and sounds great too. The reverb on this is amazing. Let's add some delay too. Let's change our delay here. We'll go to make it a little bit shorter here, so longer time. Time 1, we'll make it a half note. Time 2, we'll make it a full whole note. Now the real fun begins when we go into our macros here. Now the macros, each sound has 3 built-in macros, which I love. It's just so immediate. Timbre, motion, and experiment. And this really just lets you sculpt the sound on the fly, as well as do pitch bend. But most impressively, in my opinion, is that this is actually a polyphonic aftertouch keyboard, which is just really impressive for the price. So we can actually map pretty much anything to aftertouch. So let's go ahead and we'll get into the synth section in a sec. Let's map some cutoff to aftertouch. So let's go. Maybe not that much. There we go. And just like that, we've got a polyphonic aftertouch enabled beautiful ambient patch. Absolutely beautiful. What if I don't want to keep holding this note? Well, simple. Let's shift. Now the note is held down permanently. Let's do that again with another one. That's too high. Now I can jam. Absolutely lovely. So right there, even if you don't really care about the tritimbrel side of it, which is really cool, you should, it's a very, very capable polyphonic aftertouch, really good sounding ambient synthesizer with a great reverb. So let's get into some of the more fun and interesting sound designy aspects. So again, millions and millions of videos are going to go over and essentially show you how all the different engines sound. So I'm not going to do that, but instead I am going to load up one of the coolest ones, which is the grain, and we'll go ahead and you can load your own samples in here to be the grains as well too. But let's just start off with cherub call here. I think it's a little laggy right now because I have all of the voices allocated, so let's go ahead and fix that. I haven't really ran into low CPU issues, but occasionally if you do try to do too much stuff, it can be a little bit laggy there, but it's usually pretty good. So let's have 4 for our patch, and let's have 1 for our grain, and we're gonna need a new grid. So let's go back into grid, and if you remember, we have all these different cool layouts. They're really just, up to your personal preference. What should we do? So we're going to be probably playing a lot on the blue and not too much. That looks pretty good. So this way, I think what I'll be able to do is have the blue for my keys and the yellow for my grain. So cool. And then I guess we're going to go ahead and make one voice allocated to our bass. Let's go and find a bass. So simple like that. We're going to select the third synth right here. Let's go into our presets and let's actually initialize. Nice, very, very nice fat sounding oscillator. We're going to have that be lower for a bass though. Let's actually go back to C sharp. Awesome, and let's turn to minor. As nice as Lydian is, let's go to some minor. So cool, right? So we're gonna go back to the grain in a second, but first let's go ahead, like I mentioned, and design a more interesting sound for our bass. So our engine here, we've got our parameters, so fatness. That's like gonna be a detune. And again, there's so many different engines and each one of these is gonna have specific controls. And some of them, like the FM one, are very, very deep and really get to go deep. There is a lot of menu diving, be warned, but that's kind of to be expected with a synth that's this portable and doing this much stuff. That's kind of cool. Let's put some noise in. I'm gonna reset it for the punch. We'll go into filter. We've got different filter types. I love the Obi style filter. Of course I do. Filters sound really solid. Yeah, that's dubstep 101 right there, but we're not gonna use that for now. Let's go into our ADSR, and we have 2 ADSRs for this synth. Some of the algorithms have actually 3. And let's go ahead and make this more of a sort of ambient style bass. So we're gonna increase the attack and increase that release. Cool, I'm liking that for now. Let's go ahead and do our little aftertouch trick here. So we'll go ahead into our macros and we'll go into aftertouch. We'll program the filter to respond to cutoff. Love it. Okay, cool. And then let's go back to our grain now that we're happy with this basic sound, and I'll show you how to design a sound on the grain. So we'll go here, jump to here. Let's actually shift and hold down. And we can have all these parameters like the grain size, the density, the spread, the pan spread, the burst versus cloud. We can change all these different samples. Oh, that's nice. I absolutely love granular, and while it is monophonic, keep that in mind, this is a totally capable granular engine. We can sync, we can do the size spread, detune. I'm actually really liking how this is sounding though, so let's move on. And you know, I'm not gonna mess with the filter here, but I do wanna add some ADSR to really get this grain just ringing out. Always wanna turn your release up. And I'm also gonna go into the grid and make this guy an octave higher. Beautiful. Okay, cool. Let's go into our mixer, and you can see how crazy fast this is, right? Some delay. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and change the delay. I don't like how it is sounding before. We'll just make basic quarter notes. We'll actually turn it off tempo sync. And type of model delay. There's a bunch of different ones. Stereo. There we go. Let's change our reverb to be a little bit less insane. It's just a bit too much right now. And finally, the last effect we haven't even looked at yet is the mod depth. I guess we should probably modulate something. Let's do our bass. So the mod can be a whole bunch of different things. You can do stereo, dual. There are also presets for effects if you don't want to get behind the scenes, but I just find they're so easy to work with that I really enjoy just kind of doing my own thing here. There you go, beautiful. Without any mod, monophonic. With mod, oh my gosh, we've got some Blade Runner madness here. Wow, beautiful. Okay. So we'll keep this scene simple for now, and before I show you one more scene that takes advantage of some of the synth's coolest features, let's of course jam on this. All right, I'm gonna create one more scene that shows off arguably the most powerful feature of the synth. So let's start off by allocating some basic sounds. So I'm actually fine with the stock bass. For the chords, let's go for some sort of pad type sound. Whoops, let's go in here. Let's go to VAP is great. And let's go ahead and... Of course we gotta take Blade Runner, come on. And then for this one, let's take just some kind of, basic lead sound. Let's go in for, how about phase distortion? Let's try that. Classic saw, I love it. Let's quickly do the effects. Again, just showing off how quick this is. So we'll do some mod for the bass. We'll do some delay for the lead. And some reverb for the synth. We're also going to check with the mixer here quickly. I kind of want the chords down a bit and pan to the right, and then the lead pan to the left. Love it. And then finally, just some basic housekeeping. Let's go into our amazing macros. I keep doing this, but it's just so cool. And we'll go ahead and make the polyphonic aftertouch. Let's make sure we're on the right one. Yeah, okay, cool. That's something I do have to still get used to, is making sure that I'm assigning aftertouch for the right thing. So, okay, cool. Let's go ahead and open up the filter, cut off here. Perfect, okay. And then what I want to show you that's so cool now that we've set this up is if we go to grid and we actually all of a sudden change our Blade Runner sound from note mode to one of the chord modes, we're basically going to now be able to play chords like we heard in some of those demos on each key. We can change the style of chord. We can keep it really simple and just literally have like a basic power fifth. Or, in my opinion, most interestingly, we can actually go and set it to the same key as we're in this case a minor key, and now we have the correct triad for each of the keys that are in the scale. If that doesn't make sense, basically it allows us to do one finger chord progressions that are just gonna always sound great. Like, come on, that sounds amazing already. But now the magic comes, if we remember our bass line, if we change it from note mode to follower, and then we change it from a basic plucked sound to, let's say, an arpeggiated bass. Now, as we play chords, it's gonna change the note. And that right there is how we get these amazing sounding fun jams in real time that we're able to control and perform. So let's go ahead and jam on this amazing sound right here. And we'll start off by playing a basic chord progression. Let's quickly finish our last sound and then we can jam on this. So we're gonna go back here and we will make this follow as well. Now without being in art mode, it's just gonna give us a context of where the root of each note is, which is helpful, but it's not gonna actually change them like the bass. And then let's bump that up an octave. Let's bump it up even one more. And let's actually tweak this sound a little bit. Why not? Let's get fancy. So let's turn our cutoff up. Go for that Oberheim style. And here is where the magic happens. Let's start off by jamming. right, so I think that's probably where I'll wrap it up, but let's finish with some pros and cons and who I think the synth is for. Now, I think right off the bat, the best pro, for me at least, is the innovative design that makes you think differently. If you're someone who is sick of staring at computers all day and you really want to get outside of the box and make music in an intuitive and fun way, then the synth is really, really great for that. The different grid modes, the fact that it's tri-timbral and has polyphonic aftertouch at this price point is truly awesome and incredible. And once I clicked with the idea of making music in this different way, I think it really got interesting for me, and I really started to have a lot of fun and really explore how powerful it can get under the hood. Finally, I think that the scale lock and follow and different grid modes are truly innovative, and I would love to see this on different Polyend products in the future. Maybe something that's like an all-in-one master kind of play meets Polyend Synth, bigger grid groovebox, because while I am missing the samples and all of the cool, Duke Nukem sample mangling modes of the play, which in full transparency is still my favorite Polyend product, I absolutely love the different grid modes and the way that the melodic content will follow what you're playing and all be locked in key for the synth. That is so cool. For cons, I will say full transparency that when I first got this synth, it was pretty buggy. I was working on a pre 1.0 firmware, but to my knowledge, most of the bugs have been fixed. It seems like it's rock solid now, but that is one of the reasons why it took me a little bit of time to click with it. And I also do notice that if you get really high in CPU, like you're using a lot of polyphony and lots of granular and really long reverbs, the synth can get a little bit laggy. Again, I don't know if that's because I have a pre-release model or not, but just bear that in mind. And finally, this is a very specific con, but I find that while the aftertouch works flawlessly, I really don't like the velocity response. And I've tried every single velocity response, but I actually just leave velocity off, which is not a big deal because you're still getting the expression of the poly aftertouch pads, which feel amazing to play. Seriously, this is just the quality of having a poly aftertouch controller at this price point with 8 built-in synth engines is so awesome. I just wish that the velocity felt as nice as a response as the aftertouch does, because oftentimes I'll be pressing a note down and it'll play quieter than I expect, or it will play louder. So that's why I just turned it off. And for the entire demo, you were hearing velocity off and just aftertouch. You can be the judge. I thought it was still really expressive and beautiful sounding. Finally, who is this for and who is it not for? I think this is the perfect first synth for somebody who wants to get out of the computer and get into a deep and capable synth that's very expressive and has a lot of really cool, unique possibilities, and maybe isn't coming from a traditional music background, because that was something that took me a little bit of time to gel with, is the non-traditional way of making music where the grid is moving along as you're changing chords. But once you get it, it's so intuitive and it's so fun. So I think it's a great option. If you just want to, end the day after work with jamming and creating really beautiful, awesome synth music, this is like a no-brainer. It sounds great. Who it's not for? I think if you're somebody who is used to making music on the DAW and likes the way that that works with that hybrid workflow, and you're used to making music on a keyboard synth and you just kind of want to add new sounds to your palette, I'd probably look at something else, because again, while the sounds are great, all the parameters are behind menus and screens, and the main selling point of this, in my opinion, is the unique workflow. So if you've been watching this video and you like the workflow, chances are you're going to love the synth. If you've been watching the video and you're like, that looks weird, I think I'd rather stick with a keyboard, then chances are you're better off with something else. But as always, let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to Polyend for sending over the synth. I've had a ton of fun with it. And as always, please do make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. We're almost at 50K here in this community, which is so cool, so humbling. So please like and subscribe, share the video, and I will see you in the next one. Happy holidays, everyone.